Michael Jordan discovers his first pair of Jordans in a thrift store, then learns who sold them and why. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. The bell above the door jingled weakly as Michael Jordan stepped into the thrift store. He hadn't planned on being here. He was just trying to kill time, escaping the cold Chicago wind for a moment, hoodie pulled low to avoid being recognized. The place smelled like old books and dust, filled with sagging shelves and forgotten memories. For a second, he thought about turning around, but something about the place held him. He kept his head down and browsed through racks of worn jackets and battered furniture. A beat-up basketball sat in the corner, its leather cracked and faded. It made him smile, if only for a second. It reminded him of playgrounds where dreams were born and broken on the same afternoon. He wandered to the back of the store where a small glass case displayed old sneakers. Most of them were beaters, shoes worn past their prime, but then something caught his eye. A familiar shape. Black, red, and white leather, scuffed and bruised but unmistakable. Air Jordan 1s. His heart skipped for a second. Not just any Jordans. These were from the first batch, the originals. He leaned closer. His eyes widened. There was a signature on the side. His signature. He stood frozen, staring at the shoes like they'd grown thorns. He could barely read the ink now, faded and smudged by years of wear and maybe tears, but it was there. He remembered signing shoes like these for fans all across Chicago when he was still fighting to prove he belonged. He remembered doing it without thinking, barely glancing up from the marker. Another kid, another autograph, another moment in a life that had moved too fast. But now, staring at them behind dusty glass, it hit differently. He waved to the man at the counter, an old guy with thick glasses and a Cubs cap. The man shuffled over. "Where'd these come from?" Michael asked, voice low. The man scratched his neck. "Kid dropped them off about a week ago. Needed some quick cash. Didn't say much." Michael nodded slowly. "You get a name?" The man fished out a slip of paper taped to the bottom of the box. "Just says Tyar, that's it." Tyar. The name meant nothing to Michael, but it gnawed at him anyway. Someone once cared enough about these shoes to get them signed, to keep them for decades. Now they sat here like trash, priced at $50. $50 for a memory. Without a word, he pulled out his wallet and dropped $100 on the counter. "Keep the change," he said, grabbing the shoes. The old man raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything. Michael tucked the shoes under his arm and left. The wind hit him hard outside, but he barely felt it. He stood on the sidewalk, staring down at the shoes, feeling something heavy settle on his chest. He didn't need the shoes. He didn't even know why he cared. But part of him, the part that still remembered being a kid in Wilmington, playing ball until the sun went down, wouldn't let it go. There was a story behind these shoes. And he needed to know it. He spent the rest of the afternoon in his car, laptop open, chasing down every Tyar he could find in the Chicago area. Tyrell, Tyler, Tyrone. Nothing fit. He called the store back, asked about the receipt. The man grumbled but checked. There was a partial phone number scribbled on the back, barely legible. Michael's heart thumped as he dialed it. No answer. He tried again. Voicemail. A young voice, tired and flat. "This is Tyrell. Leave a message." Michael sat back, thinking. He could leave it alone. He had meetings, appearances, a life full of things demanding his attention. But he didn't hang up. "Hey," he said after the beep. "You don't know me. Or maybe you do. I found something of yours. I'd like to talk. No pressure. Just call me back." He hung up, feeling stupid. What was he doing? Chasing ghosts? Still, he kept the shoes on the passenger seat, glancing at them every so often as he drove aimlessly through the old neighborhoods. Places he hadn't seen in decades. Places that hadn't changed as much as he had. The courts were still there, battered, graffiti-tagged, chain nets rusted. Kids still played, even in the cold, their breath fogging the air as they ran and shouted. For a second, he saw himself out there, 12 years old, scrawny and stubborn, shooting jumpers until his fingers went numb. The past didn't feel so far away now. He parked and sat for a while, just watching. No one noticed him. No one cared. And he realized he liked it that way. It made the city feel real again, not just a backdrop to his legend. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Hello? A beat of silence. Then a cautious voice. You called me? About some shoes? Yeah, Michael said. You Tyrell? Yeah, the voice said. Suspicion laced every word. Who is this? Michael hesitated. Mike. Another pause. Then a short laugh, humorless. Mike Jordan? Michael smiled sadly. That's right. Silence stretched between them. You found him? Tyrell said finally, voice cracking just a little. I did, Michael said. At a thrift shop. Thought maybe you'd want to tell me the story. Another long silence. You really want to know? Tyrell said. I do, Michael said. A heavy breath. All right, Tyrell said. You better be ready. The call ended with an address sent to his phone. South Side. Not the good part. Michael looked at the shoes again, battered but still standing. Just like the kid he was about to meet. He tightened his grip on the wheel and started driving, not knowing that what he was about to hear would haunt him forever. The streets grew rougher as Michael turned off the main roads, heading deeper into the South Side. The broken sidewalks, boarded-up houses, and chain-link fences were a far cry from the polished arenas he was used to. But he kept driving. The GPS took him to a rundown apartment complex. Paint peeled from the walls, and a couple of old cars with flat tires sat abandoned near the curb. Michael parked, adjusted his hoodie, and grabbed the shoes from the passenger seat. He climbed the cracked steps to the second floor and knocked on the door number Tyrell had texted him. It swung open after a few moments, and a young man sat there in a battered wheelchair, his legs unmoving, eyes sharp but worn. You really came, Tyrell said, voice low. Michael nodded. I said I would. They stared at each other for a beat, both sizing up the years between them. Michael offered the shoes. Tyrell didn't reach for them. He just looked. Come in, Tyrell said, backing up to let him through. The apartment was small and bare. A thin mattress on the floor, a couple of folding chairs, a TV that had seen better days. No trophies, no photos. No signs of who Tyrell had been or might have been. Michael sat without waiting for an invitation, holding the shoes loosely in his lap. You want to know, Tyrell said. It wasn't a question. Michael leaned forward. Yeah. I do. Tyrell rubbed his face, thinking. He looked out the window for a moment before speaking. I was 9 when I met you, he said. Community tournament. You showed up unexpected. Signed shoes for the MVP. That was me. Michael remembered events like that only in flashes. Dozens of appearances, hundreds of kids. But something about the way Tyrell said it made it feel fresh. I wore those shoes to every game, Tyrell said, voice softening. Kept them clean. Played like I had something to prove. Scouts started noticing. I had offers, man. Real offers. Michael said nothing, letting him go at his own pace. Then, one night, I was walking home with my brother. Some gangbangers rolled up. Wrong place, wrong time. They thought we were someone else. Shots fired. Tyrell's hands clenched on the wheels of his chair. I woke up in a hospital. My brother didn't. Michael felt the air thicken. He tightened his grip on the shoes. Doctors said I'd never walk again. Basketball? Gone. Scholarships? Gone.
Dreams? Tyrell let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Gone. Michael opened his mouth, then closed it. There were no words big enough to answer that kind of loss. I kept the shoes, Tyrell continued. For a while. They were the only thing that made me feel like I still mattered. Like maybe I was still somebody. He looked directly at Michael now, his eyes hard. But dreams don't pay rent. Dreams don't fix busted legs or fill an empty fridge. I held onto those shoes longer than I should have. Last week, when the light bill came and I had nothing left, I let him go. The room sat heavy around them. Michael nodded slowly. I'm sorry, he said, voice rough. Tyrell shrugged, trying to play it off, but the pain was too real to hide. Wasn't your fault, Tyrell said. Life just happens. Michael looked down at the shoes. They felt heavier than anything he'd ever carried onto a court. You know, Tyrell said, leaning back, people always talk about how you changed the game. Changed the world. But for me, you changed one afternoon. One day when a skinny kid thought maybe he could be something. Michael felt something shift inside him, something that had nothing to do with fame or fortune. You still can be, Michael said. Tyrell raised an eyebrow. In this chair? Michael nodded. In ways you haven't even thought of yet. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, a siren wailed, then faded into the distance. Michael pulled a card from his pocket and slid it across the table. That's my number, he said. If you're willing, I want to help. Tyrell looked at the card like it was a trick. Help how? Whatever you need to get back up, Michael said. Even if it's not on your feet. Tyrell hesitated. His pride fought against the offer, but exhaustion and hope flickered in his face. You serious? He asked. Dead serious, Michael said. Tyrell nodded once, sharp and final. All right, he said. Let's see what you got. Michael smiled faintly. You'll see. He stood, handing Tyrell the shoes one last time. This time, Tyrell took them, cradling them like something precious. Michael left the apartment feeling like he just stepped out of a fight he didn't know he was in. The cold air hit him, but he barely noticed. The past couldn't be changed. The broken couldn't always be fixed. But some things, Michael realized, could still be saved. He looked back once before getting into his car. Tyrell sat in the window, shoes on his lap, watching. Watching, and maybe, just maybe, starting to believe again. Michael turned the key in the ignition and pulled away, a new idea already forming in his mind. Tyrell wasn't the only one who needed saving. There were courts out there falling apart, kids playing with tattered balls, coaches doing the best they could with nothing. Maybe it was time he went back to the places everyone else forgot. Not as Michael Jordan the legend. As Mike. The kid who once needed a dream, too. He drove through the night, planning his next move, the battered Air Jordans resting beside him like a silent reminder. This wasn't about the past anymore. It was about what came next. Michael didn't waste time. The next morning, he made calls. Not to executives, not to brands. He called old coaches, community organizers, the people who kept the game alive when no one was watching. Names that still meant something on the South Side. Names who remembered him before the fame, before the money, when he was just Mike who couldn't quite get past his brother Larry in one-on-one. He told them what he wanted: rebuild courts, get kids back into gyms, fix what was broken. Quietly. No press. No cameras. If anyone made it about him, the deal was off. Most people didn't believe it was really him at first. Some hung up. Some cried. A few just laughed, like it was a prank. But once they heard the seriousness in his voice, they got it. By noon, he had meetings set for the rest of the week. He started with the gym where he first heard about Tyrell. It looked worse in daylight. Half the lights were dead, the walls cracked, the floor warped from years of leaks. Michael met the head coach, a woman named Denise who looked like she hadn't slept in years. Her eyes burned with the same stubborn fire he remembered seeing in himself. "You really here to help?" she asked, arms crossed. "Yeah," Michael said. "No strings. Just want to do what's right." She studied him like she was waiting for the catch. When she didn't find it, she nodded. "You got a hell of a lot of work ahead of you." He smiled. "I'm used to that." They toured the building. Denise pointed out everything that was wrong, which was basically everything. Mold. Broken heaters. A roof that could collapse in the next heavy rain. And somehow, kids still showed up every afternoon to play, slipping on the buckled court, shooting at crooked rims. Michael promised he'd start repairs immediately. Private contractors. No city politics. Fast work. Afterward, he sat in his car, thinking about Tyrell again. About all the other Tyrells he'd never met. Kids who dreamed just big enough to get their hearts broken. He called Tyrell. "You serious about coaching?" Michael asked. Tyrell hesitated. "Coaching? Kids need somebody who knows what it's like to get knocked down. Someone who knows it ain't about never falling, it's about getting back up." Tyrell was quiet for a long time. "I don't know if I'm the guy for that," he said finally. Michael smiled. "That's how I know you are." They made plans to meet at the center once repairs started. Over the next week, Michael kept his word. He hired crews to tear out the rotten floors, replace the leaking roof, fix the heating. New rims, fresh paint, real lights. He paid every invoice personally. Every worker knew not to breathe a word to the press. Some of them didn't even recognize him under the baseball cap and worn jeans. Michael didn't care. This wasn't for the headlines. It was for the game. For the next kid who thought a dream was something you could touch if you just jumped high enough. The first day the gym reopened, Michael was there, standing off to the side as kids poured through the doors. Shrieks of laughter, sneakers squeaking on fresh floors, basketballs thudding against brand new backboards.
Tyrell rolled in, awkward but determined. His chair moved smoother now, thanks to the new one Michael had arranged without telling him. Denise handed Tyrell a whistle. "You're up, coach," she said with a grin. Tyrell looked like he might bolt. Then he squared his shoulders and blew the whistle sharp and loud. "All right, listen up," he barked, surprising even himself. The kids froze, staring at him. Waiting. "You want to play here, you play right," Tyrell said. "You respect the game, you respect each other, and you respect yourselves." Some of the older boys smirked, but most of the younger ones nodded solemnly. They were hungry for structure, for someone to believe in them. Michael watched it all unfold from the shadows. Tyrell was a natural. After practice, Michael caught up with him near the bleachers. "You did good," Michael said. Tyrell shook his head. "I don't know, man." Half of them looked like they were about to fall asleep. Michael laughed. "That's how you know you're doing it right." They shared a grin. A real one. Tyrell's eyes dropped to the shoes on Michael's feet. Old Air Jordans. Beat up, just like the pair from the thrift shop. "You know," Tyrell said, "when I was a kid, I thought those shoes made me special." Michael glanced down. "Shoes don't make you special. Heart does." Tyrell nodded slowly. "Yeah, I get that now." They sat for a while, watching the kids run drills. The sounds of life, of possibility, filled the gym. "This ain't the end for you," Michael said quietly. "It's just the second quarter." Tyrell chuckled. "Hope we're winning." Michael clapped him on the shoulder. "We are now." That night, Michael stayed late, helping pack up equipment, picking up stray balls. No one recognized him. To them, he was just another guy who cared enough to be there. He liked it better that way. Before leaving, he took the battered Air Jordans out of his car one more time. The original pair. The ones from the thrift shop. He thought about putting them in a case. About preserving them like some relic. But then he thought about what Tyrell said. Dreams weren't meant to be locked away. He walked back inside, found the trophy case near the entrance, dusty, half-broken, mostly empty, and placed the shoes dead center. No plaque. No signature. Just the shoes. A reminder that greatness wasn't about what you wore. It was about what you left behind. As he stepped back into the night, the cold bit through his jacket, but it didn't bother him. He was already thinking about the next gem. The next kid. The next chance to turn something forgotten into something unforgettable. Michael didn't stop at one gem. Over the next few weeks, he moved quietly across Chicago, showing up in forgotten places most stars would never set foot in. He toured old courts where backboards hung by a thread, gyms where water stains mapped the ceiling, playgrounds littered with broken glass. Every place he visited, he saw a piece of himself, a kid who once believed the world could be conquered with nothing but a ball and a dream. He didn't make speeches. He didn't sign autographs. He talked to the people who mattered, the coaches working 2 jobs to keep the lights on, the mothers running big sales to buy jerseys, the old heads sweeping courts at dawn just to keep them playable. He listened. And then he wrote checks. Quietly. No photo ops. No announcements. Meanwhile, at the first center, Tyrell was finding his rhythm. The kids loved him. He was tough but fair, demanding but patient. He didn't just teach them how to dribble or shoot, he taught them how to hold their heads up when the world tried to knock them down. Word got around. Other centers called, asking if Tyrell could come run clinics. Volunteers showed up, donations trickled in. It was small, messy, and nothing went perfectly, but it was alive. Michael made a habit of stopping by after hours, sometimes just to shoot around alone when the gym was empty. One night, as he worked through old drills, he heard the wheels of a chair rolling up behind him. "You still got it," Tyrell called out. Michael smiled and nailed a free throw without looking. Tyrell rolled to the three-point line and picked up a ball. "Bet I can hit one before you miss," he said. Michael laughed. "That's a bold bet." Tyrell cocked an eyebrow. "You scared?" Michael stepped back. "All right. Let's go." They shot in silence for a while, both landing basket after basket. It wasn't about winning. It was about something deeper, 2 men tied by the same game, the same hunger, even if life had pushed them down different roads. After a while, Tyrell missed. Michael rebounded the ball and tossed it back. "Thanks for coming back," Tyrell said, breathing hard. Michael wiped sweat from his brow. "I never really left." Tyrell nodded slowly, understanding more than the words said. Later that week, Denise cornered Michael in the hallway. "I got something you should see," she said. She led him to a back office stacked with folders and dusty trophies. On the wall, someone had pinned a faded team photo from decades ago. Kids in mismatched jerseys, standing proud on a beat-up court. In the back row, a tall, skinny kid in red shorts and a serious face. Michael stared. It was him. 14 years old. Before the titles, before the fame. Someone had kept it all this time. "I found it cleaning out the storage closet," Denise said. "Thought you might want it." Michael didn't answer. He just kept looking at the photo. He remembered that day like it was yesterday. Remembered thinking he wasn't good enough. Remembered vowing to prove everyone wrong. That photo wasn't just a memory. It was a promise. And he realized he hadn't kept it. He had left. He had chased greatness across the world, but somewhere along the way, he'd forgotten the place that made him. Maybe it wasn't too late to fix that. He turned to Denise. "I want to do more," he said. She raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" Michael stared at the photo a moment longer before answering. "Everything." He started laying out plans. Not just fixing gyms, but funding leagues, hiring real coaches, setting up scholarships. Giving kids more than just a place to play, giving them a way out. He called Tyrell that night. "You ready to go bigger?" he asked. Tyrell laughed. "Man, I barely got this gym under control." Michael grinned. "That's why you're the right guy." Together, they mapped out a network of community programs. Michael provided the funding. Tyrell brought the fire. Denise rallied volunteers. The first season kicked off with 6 teams, then 12, then more. For the first time in years, Chicago's forgotten courts buzzed with real hope. Michael stayed in the background, just another face in the bleachers. He didn't want the spotlight. He wanted the results. One night, Tyrell called him. "You gotta come down here," he said, urgency in his voice. Michael drove over, pulling up to the gym just as a group of kids were finishing practice. Tyrell met him at the door, grinning from ear to ear. "You gotta see this," he said. They walked inside. The trophy case near the entrance had been cleaned up, the cracked glass replaced. Inside, right next to Michael's battered Air Jordans, stood a new addition. A team photo from this year's first championship. The kids were grinning, arms slung over each other's shoulders, holding up a trophy almost too big for them. And in the front row, on a beat-up but proud wheelchair, sat Tyrell, smiling wider than Michael had ever seen. Above the case, someone had hung a simple sign. "Dreams don't expire." Michael felt something tighten in his chest. It wasn't pride. It was something deeper. It was peace. He turned to Tyrell. "You did good," he said. Tyrell shook his head. "We did." They stood there for a long time, watching kids file out, laughing, planning rematches and trash-talking like they were already legends. For them, the future wasn't something to fear anymore. It was something to chase. Michael knew he couldn't fix every broken dream, but he could build places where new ones had a shot. He could keep a promise he didn't even know he had made all those years ago. He could be more than a legend. He could be a beginning. Months passed. The courts flourished. The community centers Michael quietly funded became lifelines. Kids who once roamed the streets after school now sprinted into gyms with balls under their arms and fire in their eyes. New jerseys replaced old t-shirts. Coaches replaced empty courts. Hope replaced silence. Michael stayed invisible. It wasn't about him. It never had been. It was about the next Tyrell. The next kid who needed to know somebody cared enough to fight for them. One afternoon, Denise called. "You need to come by," she said. "It's important." Michael showed up late, parking around the corner like he always did. He liked slipping in unnoticed. He liked being just Mike again. He pushed through the double doors and froze. The gym was packed. Banners hung from the rafters, championships won, scholarships earned, dreams achieved. Hundreds of kids and parents filled the stands. Tyrell sat at center court, a microphone in hand, grinning like a man who had already won the biggest game of his life. Michael tried to back out. This wasn't what he signed up for. Denise caught him by the arm. "You're not leaving," she whispered fiercely. "You need to hear this." Before he could argue, Tyrell's voice boomed across the court. "Before we get to the awards, we gotta thank someone," he said. "A man who showed up when nobody else did. A man who remembered us when the world forgot." Tyrell scanned the crowd until his eyes locked on Michael's. He thinks he's just some guy. But he's more than that. He's proof that you're never too big to come home. The crowd turned. Michael felt every eye in the room land on him. For a moment, he wanted to vanish. He wasn't built for this part. He was built for the grind, not the glory. But something in Tyrell's face held him there. Something that said, this matters. The kids started clapping. Then the parents. Then everyone. The sound swelled until the gym shook. Michael walked slowly to center court. No speeches. No dramatic gestures. He just stood next to Tyrell, shook his hand, and gave a nod to the crowd. They didn't need words. They already knew. Later, after the awards, after the hugs and the pictures and the endless thank yous, Michael sat alone on the bleachers, watching kids shoot baskets under the bright lights. Tyrell rolled up next to him. "You all right?" he asked. Michael nodded. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About how easy it is to forget where you come from," Michael said. "And how hard it is to find your way back." Tyrell chuckled. "You found it, though." Michael glanced around the gym. Fresh paint. New backboards. Full stands. Laughter echoing off the walls. "Yeah," he said. "Maybe I did." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the thump of basketballs, the squeak of sneakers, the sound of futures being rewritten one layup at a time. Finally, Tyrell broke the silence. "You ever regret it?" Michael looked at him. "Regret what?" "All of it. The fame. The money. The championships." Michael thought about it. Really thought about it. "Not the game," he said finally. "Never the game." Tyrell nodded like he understood. Michael stood, stretching his legs. "I gotta go," he said. Tyrell offered a hand, and Michael shook it firmly. "You know where to find me," Tyrell said. Michael smiled. "Yeah, right here." He left the gym without looking back, the sounds of laughter chasing him into the night. He didn't drive home right away. Instead, he found himself back at the little thrift shop where it all started. The place was closed now, the windows dusty, a for lease sign hanging crooked in the door. Michael stared at it for a long time. Life moved fast. Faster than anyone could really handle. But some moments stuck. Some choices stayed with you. He thought about that day, the old shoes sitting lonely on a shelf, forgotten by the world but not by the one who needed them most. He thought about Tyrell, about the kids, about the faces that lit up when they realized someone believed in them. He thought about himself. About Mike, the kid who used to dream bigger than his small town could hold. He wasn't chasing anything anymore. He had arrived. Michael turned and walked back to his car. He didn't need anything from the thrift shop. He already had everything he needed. As he drove through the city streets, he saw it differently now. Not as a map of missed chances, but as a landscape of possibility. Every cracked court was a second chance. Every broken rim was a challenge waiting to be met. Every kid with a scuffed-up ball and a stubborn heart was a story still being written. Michael knew he couldn't play forever. But he could build forever. He could make sure the next generation had something better than a memory in a thrift store. He could make sure they had a future. A real one. The streetlights blurred past his windows as he drove, but his mind was clear. It wasn't about shoes. It wasn't about fame. It was about what you leave behind when the game ends and the crowd goes home. It was about what you build when no one's watching. It was about making sure dreams, no matter how dusty, how worn, how forgotten, never truly died. Michael Jordan smiled to himself. The game wasn't over. It was just getting started.